are you?
I don't know. Are we recording to the cloud?
We will.
Okay, I'm recording now. Can you still record now that I'm recording?
Yes, we are. Yep, we're good.
Okay.
You're all so technical. Yeah, look, we've got little red dots flashing next to our names. It's so exciting.
It's so exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting. Yeah, all right. Well, we're recording.
All right, darling.
All right, darling. You want to do that?
I shall officially start us. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us at the Plieadians tonight. Although it's not a requirement to be Pleiadian, as we're all in human form, we can be from anywhere in the whole galaxy or the mind of God. And we're very honored and very happy today to have Karen Swain, who I've known since at least 25 years, 20 years for sure, who I went to for healing and has taught me lots and lots along the spiritual journey. And this is Karen's actual bio. Karen is a teacher of deliberate creation, a spiritual mentor and educator, a host for Accentuate the Positive Media, author, inspirational speaker who activates, accelerates, and acclimates and accentuates the New World teachers, supporting the light weavers and difference makers, bringing in a new dawn of reality. Karen enlightens you to the power of your thoughts and beliefs, how they create your reality, and how to live in alignment with your emotional guidance system. This is guidance on a cosmic scale, remembering your connection to your spiritual team and multidimensional selves, who you are, why you are here, and how you help this world. Karen is one of Australia's foremost thought leaders and change agents, showing you the way to a happier, healthier, more connected, multidimensional life. And what we're going to do is Karen's going to speak to us and maybe channel some information, and then we'll go to questions and answers. So I'll be the gatekeeper letting people in while I will hand over to you, Lady Karen. So we should all mute, I guess. Can I mute me? I'll mute me. And over to you, Lady Karen.
Oh, thank you, darling one. First time you've introduced me. I've introduced you. Now you've introduced me. Yay. Okay, where do I start? Well, I suppose people might want to know a little bit about me. My journey started as a child, having guidance all the time, not knowing it was guidance. And this is something I speak about a lot because I think, okay, I know that everyone that's attracted to my work and everyone that's listening to this and everyone that's online at the moment has clear guidance talking to you all the time, your spiritual team. Not that anybody else doesn't on the planet, but you're here specifically to tap into that and to be difference makers and light weavers and new world teachers, because I'm a teacher of teachers. So everyone that's attracted to my work is here on earth to make a difference and to be a part of the shift at the moment. So my journey started with mum getting sick and dying. And of course, like most kids in my ego, I was all about shoes and boys and hoping people liked me. And then she got sick and I started asking different questions. Instead of who can I get to like me and how many shoes can I buy, I started thinking, why do people get sick? Why do people get sick? And then she dies when I'm about 15, 16. And I'm like, now I wonder where she went. And if she went somewhere, we must have come from that place. So I wonder where that is. And so that put me on my spiritual path, asking questions and asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. I was always asking questions. According to my parents, they were saying I just harassed them endlessly with questions. So why is a baby that's not baptized going to go to hell? That doesn't make any sense. And how can an unconditionally loving God judge you if they're unconditionally loving? That doesn't make any sense. And all these questions that my parents just had no idea how to answer. And I think that as we, especially now, as we continue on our ever evolving, consciousness journey, it is those questions that we have to continue asking as we look at the status quo and see what's happening in our world. And, so many people are waking up with the questions now. I'm just seeing the admitting thing coming in. So it was in my 30s when I started running the Academy of Light. Psychics used to come up to me and tell me that I'm going to be a teacher and I'm going to speak to people and all that sort of stuff. Something that I never wanted to do. And I started a little group when I read the Conversation with God books, because I wanted to have this conversation with people. And I couldn't find anybody that had a group, so I started my own. And I met a man called Paul Fitzgerald, who took me to another group called the Academy of Light. And they were all older than me. I was in my 30s and everyone was like 50 plus, 55 plus. But they were having a conversation I wanted to have. I think that at the time, in my 30s, my generation were too busy with careers and bringing up kids. And so I ran the Academy of Light for a while, thinking that if I put myself in front of a group every Monday night, it'll get me used to speaking in front of people. And I think that, this is before the internet. I think that many of you who have something to say, it's good to start putting yourself in front of people and talking and sharing your truth with people as a way to acclimate and accentuate who you are as a spiritual teacher. And of course, life is the best way to learn spirituality. You can do all manner of courses, but life is the very best way to learn spirituality. On the weekend, I was away with a group of vision keepers. We call ourselves the Vision Keepers, supposedly keeping the vision for the conscious leaders of Sydney. We were down at a little place just out of Sydney, and I've forgotten what I was going to say about that now. Totally forgot what I was going to say about that. I was thinking about where it was and I forgot. But so keeping the vision. Lost my train of thought. Ask me a question, David. Totally lost my train of thought. Hang on, it'll come back.
I've got to unmute. Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you were planting trees or something in the country, right, on the weekend?
Yeah, we were planting, but it was something about something about the conversation we were having that I was going to say, but it'll come back to me in a minute. It'll come back to me.
Why are we here question?
A why are we here question. So, I used to showcase a lot of New World teachers through the Academy. We would have a guest teacher every Monday night and a meditation and a social network. It was a social network, cups of tea, biscuits, and talk about all this stuff. And I always felt like they were hitting the mark, but there was a puzzle piece that they were missing. There was a puzzle piece that I knew if we're the creators of our reality. Who read the Seth books? Did anyone read the Seth books? And in the Conversation and God books too, they talk about us being the creators of our reality. So if we're the creators of our reality, then we can't be a victim to anything. And yet so many spiritual teachers were teaching things but saying, oh, we're affected by this or we're affected by that, or sort of coming at it with like we're a victim to our star sign or to the ray that we're on or to the colors that we are or something. And I just thought, no, there's something more to this story. And it wasn't until somebody sent me an Abraham Hicks CD that I went, oh my God, finally a teacher that has the puzzle piece that I knew about. And so, as David said in the bio, I'm a teacher of deliberate creation, which means that we are deliberate in creating our reality. So everything that's happening to us, including this time on Earth during the COVID, everything that's happening to us is happening because on some level of our being, we have created it, and we have created it for many reasons. So if we've come into this world to be teachers of, to help transmute fear to love, to be teachers of the light, to be light weavers or light workers or New World teachers or difference makers, then we have to come into a fraught existence in order to do the work we're going to do. And so on some level of soul, we've chosen to be on Earth at this time specifically for that. And as light weavers, listening to Laurie Ladd speaking last week, she kept saying, how hard it is for us to choose the light when we see so much darkness. But I think that, if we're the creators of our reality, hard is only a concept of mind. So if you say something's easy, and you believe that it's going to be easy, then you're going to find that it's easy, no matter what you do. What I find in my generation, so 50, 60 plus, that a lot of people in my generation find technology really hard. Not mentioning any names. And I did too. Like in my 40s, I felt like I was treading water. So I got online and I learned to do technology. I was a dyslexic kid, and so reading things was not my forte. And yet I spent days, hours, years online reading how to do stuff online. And I was bumping up against my resistance or my limiting thoughts saying, God, this is hard. I don't understand this and I don't really want to learn it. And I would challenge that. Like I would challenge that and say, it's only hard if you say it is. It's only hard if you say it is. What if it's easy? What if it's easy? And I kept changing the way I viewed myself, especially when it came to reading, because my default setting was I'm not a very good reader because I was dyslexic as a kid. But what happened was, as someone who came in to develop my psychic abilities, my soul had purposely shut down that left aspect of the brain, which is the more logical, analytical aspect of thinking, so that I would really develop the creative psychic perspective. And that's exactly what I did. And once I started to develop that creative psychic perspective of my being, I was able to bring that logical aspect of me back online and have that balance of the left and right brain. And I see that with a lot of people who are, so many people that I interview on the show who are really psychic say that they're dyslexic, because I think that our society is so, and I hate to talk about this with the critical thinkers, but our society is so fixated on logical thinking and working things out that it doesn't, especially in schools, it doesn't celebrate our intuitive, creative and psychic abilities. And I think that that has to change. You know, that's something I'm really passionate about, especially in schools, that it has a curriculum that's more balanced so that our psychic abilities are enhanced and developed as we're educated, as well as our logical abilities. So many children are on the planet now that are labeled ADHD or what do you call it? And they're drugged up with Ritalin and stuff because attention deficit disorder, they don't have the ability to think the way that most schools think. I have a nephew who was born on September 11, the day the towers came down, who just couldn't learn to read or write. He's the most unbelievable artist and incredibly psychic. But he thinks of himself as stupid. He keeps telling me how stupid he is. He's dumb and he can't do things because that's how he was taught in the school system. But he's actually a genius and brilliant. Another best friend who has a child the same age, well, they're not children anymore, they're 18 now, but just couldn't read or write. And I think that, you know, as we're moving in evolution, developing our psychic creative abilities is so important. What else do I want to talk about? Has anyone got any questions about being a deliberate creator and how we flow our energy to be the creators of our reality?
Yeah.
After you.
I've got a question. So when you talk about we are the creators of our own reality, are you talking about your higher self or your ego self being the creators of your own reality? Because some spiritual masters would say that our ego self is not in control at all. We think we are, but we're not. And it's really the universe or God or our higher self, using those terms interchangeably, that is really driving the show. And our ego self will engage in certain activities, thinking that that's good for us. But it's our higher self always nudging us back to center. So therefore, when people talk about the law of attraction, it's kind of just makes the whole law of attraction completely redundant. If we think we want something, but our higher self is saying, no, you really don't want that. It's not, you don't want that. That's why the law of attraction doesn't work in every single instance, because it's not in alignment with our higher self. So I just wanted to understand from you this interplay between the ego self and the higher self, and what it is exactly you're talking about when you talk about self-actualization and the ability to, what was your words, create your own reality?
Okay, that is such a fabulous question. The ego self is a creation of the higher self. They are not separate. They work together. And so in order to experience separation and third dimensional reality, the higher self, which is the divine aspect of us, which is the extension of source energy, created an aspect of it to experience separateness, because the truth of who we are is oneness and connectedness. So in order to have an experience of separateness, we have to create an ego self. And so the ego self is in alignment with the desires of the higher self. So usually when the ego self desires something, apart from, I don't know, lots of sex and lots of ice cream or stuff like that, holidays, it's usually because it's the desire of the higher self. So before we come into this existence, we actually, what we do is we insert ourselves into the earth experience through all time and space. So our higher self, or our soul, for instance, is another word. Well, it's not another word for the higher self, but an aspect of the higher self, which is the soul, that is inserting itself into the earth experience, because the higher self is multidimensional and there has many aspects of it that is living out lives in other dimensions and other planets, as well as in other timelines, and here on planet Earth. So when we come into planet Earth, often many spiritual teachers will talk about, we live a life, we die, we go back to heaven, we regroup, we come back, we choose what we want to do, we come back in, and we're experiencing this life through a linear pattern. Earth life, die, spiritual life, make a decision to come back, earth life, die. But that's actually not what happens. We think about earth experience as one experience, and we design our lives from that broader perspective in all time and space. I want to know what it feels like to be an animal, a mountain. I'll come in during the time of Atlantis. I'll come in during the time of Jesus. I'd like to experience what it was like when the earth was forming. I want to know what the dinosaurs were like. I'll come in during the, this century, that century, this century, that century. And so the light workers that are here at this time, many starseeds, for instance, this is the Plieadian Awakenings, who've come to be specifically here for the shift in yugas, in eras, the shift in human consciousness as we move into a new time on planet Earth. They will insert themselves into the Earth experience during this time, but having not experienced Earth or third dimensional density before, they'll say things like, I better acclimate to the frequency of what it's like to be human, to understand what separateness is like, because on many other dimensions, they're more connected. They understand the oneness of being, whereas humans just don't, because we created these egos, which gives us the illusion of separateness, which was a brilliant plan. And so they'll insert themselves into the Earth experience in a few different timelines, depending on what they want to experience as they're here and what they want to teach during these times of shift. Is this making sense, or am I getting a little bit complicated? Yeah? Okay. So we have a desire, an intention. What do I want to do during this particular lifetime, in this particular era, during this particular shift? How do I want to affect change? How do I want to serve? And so we have this intention, and our ego self is in communication with this intention all the time. But we do have free will, and we have the opportunity and the ability to say no. So our guides are talking to us all the time. My guides talk to me all the time and give me really great advice. And my ego self says, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, no, because I have that ability to say no. But there is this underlying urge, push, I don't know, like knowing, if you like, of why we're here and what we've come to do. And if we let our ego self take control and say, no, sounds too hard, no, I can't do that. So the ego self is the part of you that says, I can't or I can. It's the part of you that forgets your brilliance, that you are the creator of your reality, that you can achieve anything. It's the part of you that believes the stressful thought. It's the part of you that buys into fear. Remember, it's the part of you that is choosing the expression of separateness. Separateness to what? Separateness to your brilliance, separateness to love, separateness to God, separateness to each other, separateness to all things. And depression is often when the ego self is hearing the call of the higher self, or the soul plan, if you like, but it's not choosing to make those decisions. So there are many people that have come to Earth that have wanted to be a part of the shift, the group of people that are here to bring in a new dawn of reality, that have not awoken or have not lived into their potential. And they live and die. And then they go back, they return to their broader perspective and go, oh, I knew I could be loved, but I forgot that I knew I could be loved, and I got caught up in fear. And that's called free will. But from that perspective, there's no wrongs or rights. So when it comes to law of attraction, for instance, we have the ability to think about and create anything we want here on planet Earth through the law of attraction. In fact, law of attraction works in every dimension. But the difference between law of attraction in the spiritual realm and law of attraction in the physical realm is that we have the ability to allow our ego self to want things that aren't specifically in alignment with our higher self. We have that ability. And so we can create a world or a life that is not specifically what we said we came to do. We have that freedom. We have that freedom to do that. Whereas when you're using law of attraction in a higher dimension or a spiritual realm, you're completely in alignment with what your soul intention is and what you want to get out of that experience or existence, whether it is an existence as a spirit or an existence in other astral worlds or parallel realities or on other planets. So it's only here on planet Earth where we have more of a disconnection is not the right word, because we're never disconnected, but the call is fainter. We have the ability to drown out the higher self's calling. Yeah, better said. So we're never disconnected, but we can allow our ego to drown out the higher self's calling, but it's always there and it's always calling, and we hear it through our emotional guidance system. So for instance, there are some people that are happy doing one thing and others are not happy doing the same thing. Why is that? Because there's a calling from the higher self that's saying, this is what I came to do. This is what I came to do. This is what I came to do. So when somebody embarks on an adventure and it really lights them up, it's because that's their higher self saying, this is what you came to do. So the better it feels for you, the more ecstatically, like Bashar will say, follow your highest excitement, or Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss. So that highest excitement or that bliss is the calling of your higher self that had an intention for this life that you're leading now. And when you're listening to the call of your higher self, you are in excitement, you are in bliss, you know, you're ecstatic. And it's that emotional guidance system is hard to ignore. I mean, we can do things like make lots of money or be famous or attract a lot of people to date or adventures. But if it's not in alignment with what your higher self or your soul wanted to do, it'll kind of be, yeah, fun, but because it's not your calling, you know what I mean? It's like you're allowed to create those adventures. You can fall in love, you can make money, you can travel the world, you can do all those things. But if it's not your calling, it won't really feel like the excitement when you're on your path, so to speak, when you're really living your Dharma. So things like mathematics might be completely exciting to somebody. That's their life's calling. art is completely exciting to somebody and not to others. So we all have these different callings, and our emotional guidance system is guiding us towards that calling. So we're always guided either from our guides specifically talking to us, either giving us visuals or talking directly to us or downloading, or however, your guides talk to us. But every human being, every single human being has an emotional guidance system that they can clearly hear, because everybody knows how they feel. Like you can say to somebody, what were you thinking about? And they'll go, oh, I don't know what I was thinking about. But you can say to somebody, how do you feel? And you've instantly got, oh, I feel like this. We have access to feeling all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. So last week with Laurie, there are a few people saying that they were experiencing a lot of depression, tiredness, and not feeling good. And again, this is your emotional guidance system speaking to you. I want to address something that we touched on last week, Alex, because it was such an important, it's such an important thing for light workers, not just for you, but for all of us. So when we have an intention to be someone that's here to transmute fear to love, or someone that's here to bring the light, and I was like that too, like I called my show Accentuate the Positive, right? So we have this intention to beam light, to spread love, to spread light. When we're not doing that, our emotional guidance system is really loud, and it shows us where we're not doing it. So for instance, if you're someone who raises your vibration, so you forgive people, you decide to be happy, you start to look at the world in a broader perspective, in a more expanded perspective, and you start to get happier and happier, or more joyful, or more loving, or more accepting, what you do is you speed up your frequency. And so you're kind of running your frequency at a high level or a fast level of being. In fact, the ETs, or the higher dimensionals, have such a fast frequency that it's a bit like a fan that goes really fast. It kind of disappears. So our physical eyes can't perceive them, because their energy runs so fast that we can't perceive them through our physical eyes. Everyone's talking about, when do the ETs going to show up on Earth? There's stacks of them all around us all the time, but we can't perceive them. Just like we can't perceive, many of us can't perceive spirit, because like ETs, spirit's energy, or ghost, if you like, or spirit, who are around us all the time as well, their energy runs so high that our physical apparatus, like our eyes and ears and everything, can't perceive them. But when we raise our vibration, we become more of a vibrational match to their energy, and that's when you start to expand your psychic abilities. The more joyful, the happier you are, the more at peace you are, the more your psychic abilities expand and come online. So if you're bipping along at 1,000,000 miles an hour, raising your energy, David's a good one like that. He's so happy and loving, and he runs along at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then you hit a speed bump. And I'm using Esther's words because they're so great. When you hit a speed bump on a road and you're going really fast, it feels really shocking, like bang. It's kind of like something's fallen on your head, a brick's fallen on your head. But if you're bipping along at a really slow rate, meaning you're sort of a grumpy, ornery, pissed off person, you hate the world, you hate your husband, you hate your mother-in-law, whatever, and you hit a speed bump, which is a negative thought, you kind of go, another negative thought, no big deal. You don't really experience it as something traumatic. But for people who want to bring happiness and joy to the world and try to run that energy, they flow their energy in that fast way. When you hit negative thoughts, it's devastating. You kind of feel like it just knocks you for a six. It like knocks you out. You go to bed, you think, Jesus, what's happened to me? I'm exhausted. I can't get out of bed, because the vibrational difference between the two frequencies is quite big. Is this making sense? It's like someone who jumps out of the first story window and hits the ground, not as hurt as somebody who jumps out of the top window and hits the ground splat. So that's what happens when we run our energy really fast, and then something devastating happens and we start to think more negatively. Those negative thoughts affect us so much more than if we're running our energy slower. Is this making sense?
Yes. Karen, the way we've got the settings, darling, can anyone unmute and ask you questions? We don't have to
Sure.
do
Yeah.
anything. Great.
Sure.
So everyone can unmute anytime. And can I ask you a question,
Sure.
my dear, which is, so a lot of people are waking up one way or another, but do we have a responsibility to try to wake people up? Or is that just arrogance or self-righteousness, like my way's right, yours is wrong, so I'm going to wake you up to something? Or is it spirit, God, the universe, that wakes up individuals when they're asleep? Like I woke up at 22. I didn't ask for it. I woke up one morning and I was awake, spiritually awake at 22. But I certainly, if you'd said to me that 2 days before, some sort of cosmic message or something, I'd think you were nuts and wouldn't know what you were talking about and was only into sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But then on awakening, it's like this whole world, you know, and the people, there's talk of this mass awakening. But when I talk about Pleiadian type stuff to some of my more regular friends, they go, woo woo, you're kind of crazy. And that's okay. You know, my brother saw my interview on that Higher Self Expo we were on, and he said, God, we're different. I think you're completely crazy, but you're my brother, so I love you. And everyone's got those sorts of family members or whatever, but we're not really here to, are we here to wake people up in some capacity?
Yes and no, because law of attraction, you just have to bring law of attraction into it. If you're awake and you're an awakener, or you're a spiritual teacher or a bringer of the light or a light weaver or a new world, you know, whatever you want to call it, or a starseed, then law of attraction is going to bring people into your orbit for a reason, right? Whether that orbit is your family or not. So your soul plans when you have an awakening, because many of the people I've had on my show, for instance, I just love this guy, Garnet. You know, he was a corporate lawyer for 36 years. And he calls himself a pin down, you know, conservative, button down corporate lawyer, like so straight, so awesomely straight. And then a homeless man woke him up at 56. He was 56. So he had 56 years on the planet where he was completely asleep. And now he flies around the cosmos with Albert, who's his spirit guide, who appears as a homeless man every time. And he's just finished his 5th book, you know, in enlightening humanity to the understanding of our multidimensional nature and what else is out there in the cosmos, as well as what is here on Earth. Like, his books are explosively out of this world, right? So for 56 years, he was completely asleep. Although he had some questions, like a bit like, surely this isn't it, you know, what's it all about, Alfie? What's that movie where that guy says, you know, anyway. So he had these questions. And when Albert appeared to him as a homeless man in the street, he said, I'm here to answer your questions. So we do have a time when we are to wake up, but we also have free will. And so our spirit guides or our soul or our higher self can wake us up, and then we can go, no, no. I don't want to seem crazy. You know, I don't want to leave my job, and I don't want to follow that advice. And then we have little earth angels that come into our orbit to sort of remind us that you know, we said we were going to do something while we're here. So it all works the same. There is no, it's arrogant to wake people up. Okay. So what they want to say to you, what the guides, the mob, I call them, want to say to you is, as you work on your own ascension, getting over your own grievances, flowing your energy in a way that returns to that high vibration I was talking about, your power of influence is huge. It's absolutely huge. Esther Hicks would say, one person connected to the stream of unconditional love or pure positive energy is more influential than a million who are not. So your power of influence is huge. As you vibe, and you do this all the time, David. I mean, I do it too, and so many of you do too. But when you vibe at a certain resonance, you affect other people, because just like a tuning fork, we're all vibrating, right? We're all vibrating. And when there is a dominant vibe and you put it next to the other tuning forks, all the other tuning forks start to sing the same song. Is this making sense? That's what your power of influence is, as you vibe in a high vibration. because we all come from that high vibration. There's not a person here on earth that is not from source, or that is not an extension of the source. So our home is that vibration, that high vibration. So as we lift and raise our vibration, we're vibing or tuning at a specific frequency. And when we come into the orbit of other people, they get to acclimate to that frequency. And some people, again, free will, have the choice to go, nah, not having it. And they might meet you and just hate you and like just want to get out of your orbit, because they're well and truly entrenched in a different frequency that they are sticking to. You know, whether it's because their soul wants them to keep experiencing the contrast or that, you know, specific frequency, or whether it's their free will just being pedantic and stubborn. But you're waking people up just by being there. Is that making sense?
Yes, completely. And I'll be quiet to let other people ask you questions. But
no, ask away. I love your questions. Has anyone else got any other questions about this? About awakening, waking people up, why you're here, what you're here to do, how you can do it, how to overcome stressful thoughts.
Yeah, this is David is I mean, I drive Yannicka crazy because I'm like, we could all end up in COVID camps if I don't do something, and kind of have this desire, like, or like fear, I suppose. And I guess that answers my own question, because if it's coming from fear, then it's not the right thing, right? But I do worry if I look back in 6 months' time and didn't do more, you know, like, do we need to go like knocking door to door? Like, come on, people, what are you doing? Like, as long as we're more compliant to this, we are going to keep walking down the road where we can't do anything about this. You know, even little things like 5G and sort of the surveillance and everything that come with that, and how far to go down it. But in contrary to that, I know Yannicka is much happier to be in my sort of presence when I'm doing more positive things and trying to work on like that company that I shared, which is kind of trying to educate people of all the poisons and stuff that are in products, and how we're constantly looking for gratification externally rather than going internally. And you know what I mean? Trying to sort of promote a healthier, more balanced way for people, normal people, I don't want to call them that, but you know what I mean, more asleep people perhaps, to sort of have the positive solution rather than focusing on the problem. But I get concerned if that's enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. With everything that happens, there are 3 parts to the creative process. And if any of you saw The Secret, you'll understand this, or listen to Exeter Hicks. There is the ask is the first part. Then there's the orchestrate, the second part, and the allow. So in The Secret, I think they called it ask, believe, receive. And Esther says ask, orchestrate, allow. But it is the way the creative process happens. So what's happening here on Earth at the moment is that humanity is going through a massive step 1 process. There is an asking. And the asking is always, okay, not always, usually fraught from contrast. So when we're sick, we ask to feel better. When we're alone, we ask to feel not alone. You know, when we're down, we want to feel. So contrast, which is the way we have been creative on this planet, like we've created this density, this 3rd dimensional experience, this illusion of separateness, so that we would give birth to desire. So innately we are one with love. So when we feel like we're not one with love, there is this almighty desire within us to want to return to that. So that's why when we feel bad, we just so want to feel better, like whether we feel sick or whether we feel depressed or angry. And then people think, what can I do to feel better? So there's nothing you can do to feel better. Like, well, you can go out for a jog or dance, but that action journey, when you're in a specific vibration, when you take action from that vibration, what you do is expand that vibration, because action creates energy. So movement creates energy. We are energetic beings. We are electrical energetic beings. And when we move, we create more friction, more electricity, more energy. And so when we hold a vibration and take action in that vibration, what we do is we expand that energy. So any action that we take as light workers or difference makers should be taken from first dealing with the way we're flowing our energy. and then taking action from that space. There is inspired action, and then there is motivated action. So when you're feeling bad and you want to feel better, you have to motivate yourself to go out and do something. So you're coming from an effortful place. But when you're feeling bad and you want to feel better, if you raise your vibration, if you do the work first, which is the internal work, which is the emotional work, which is the thinking work, so you find a way to feel better and you raise your vibe. When you raise your vibe, you have this inspiration. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you kind of like, you just thrust into it. There's no motivation needed to kind of get you up and happening. You're thrust into it. And so what I'm seeing a lot in the world, well, actually I've seen it for forever, but a lot of difference makers taking action from focusing on the problem. So with any creative process, first we ask. So we see something we don't want, and then we ask, and then we orchestrate. The orchestration part of it is, like I said in The Secret, is the believing part of it. It is the work of the universe. It is the work of law of attraction. It is the work of your guides. It is the synchronicities. It is bumping into someone in the street and having that conversation that you've just been thinking about. It is the phone call. It is, it's like meeting people. It's the orchestration part of it is not our work. It's the work of law of attraction. But in order to be in alignment or to help the orchestration part, we have to raise our vibration. So the allowing part is the work I was talking about, is the emotional work, is the emotional journey or the inner work. When you raise your vibration and you're now a match to what it is that you're asking for, let me ask you, as you look out into the world and you see what you don't want, what is it that you want to see?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's what I've been focusing on, that resolution and just knowing it will be good. But every now and then I'm like, but Jesus Christ, people look like, what are they doing? So that kind of comes in and haunts me a little bit. But I guess that is my own fear residing within me, right? That it won't be okay, and I'm not safe probably, and I'm not this, that, and the other. But if I let go of that, I guess the answer is just to keep that vibe up so that the other things will fall into place. I guess it's just a faith in that it all working out, because I feel like a lot of things are kind of backed on Trump being the guy who he claims to be and all that sort of stuff. And it just, that feels like it's putting trust in external stuff again. And I guess a lot of it comes down to just resolving your internal issues.
Absolutely. But I'm going to ask you that question again, because you've missed it, because this is what we do. And this is perfect, because what we do is we see what we don't want, right? And we get so fixated on what we don't want that we try and fix it from the level of being upset about it. And then we go round in circles and round in circles and round in circles. So what do you want to see? Like, what do you want? I want a world. I want to see.
Yeah. I want to see a world where there's no restrictions on our freedom, and people live healthy, happy, loving, connected lives.
Right. Yeah. What does that feel like?
Feels light and joyful and happy.
Right. And when you're looking at things like, when you're thinking about things like Trump getting into power and stuff going wrong, and people controlling us and chipping us with microchips and AI taking over and Bill Gates, vaccinating the world and 5G killing everyone, does that feel light and joyous and happy?
No, it feels hideous.
Right. So it's so simplistically beautiful. When we align our energy with what it is we want, we create it. We manifest it. What we actually do is because as I spoke about before, when we insert ourselves into the earth experience, we do so through all time and space. So time and space only exists in this fashion, in this linear way, in this dimension, and it doesn't exist like that outside of this dimension. So what we do is we insert ourselves into a specific timeline, and then we're shifting timelines all the time. People are asking about the ascension process. I think someone asked Laurie last week about the splitting of the two earth. There is a timeline where people will be a vibrational match to an earth that is controlled by AI, and there is a timeline where people will move into an earth where we're more connected, more in harmony, and living more in harmony with each other and the planet, and we have a freer more expanded, more psychic, more loving society. So as you align your vibration with that frequency, you bring that timeline into your existence.
Perfect.
And that's how we create our reality, both personally and globally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
So again, there is this question of how do I look out onto the world and see things that I don't like and feel good about it, which was a question that was raised last week. And we discussed it, or Laurie discussed it last week, and she did really well, you know, but she said that she still has the ability to see things and not feel good about them. But when you do don your higher perspective, or you understand that your ego self and your higher self is actually one self, just two different perspectives, and that it's easy to be your higher self. Like so many people say, oh, I'm channeling the masters, or I'm channeling the higher self, or I'm channeling this, I'm channeling that. At some point on earth, we're all going to be channeling our higher self. We're all going to be more our higher self. And it's not something woo-woo or hard to do or only for special people. And we all channel our higher self all the time, many of us, when we're in flow, when we're in our highest joy or highest excitement, and we're loving. We're channeling our higher selves all the time. Channeling is just a normal part of being human. How you do that, intentions with channeling, some people intend channeling so that they can bring through messages for humanity, and some people channel through art, and some people channel through dance, and some people channel through mathematics, and some people channel through business. But we're all channeling all the time. It's not something that is should be seen as different or difficult, because we wouldn't be here unless we were channeling source energy. But we have an intention. What are you going to do with that energy that you're traveling? Where are you going to focus that energy? I'm channeling source energy. Which part of earth experience am I going to channel that frequency into? Am I going to focus on and channel it into? And so feeling negative or down is just us pinching off that flow of the call of source. And when we let go of our grievances, we just allow more energy to channel through us. So we have literally more energy, not just more spiritual energy, but more vitality. The more connected and turned in, tapped in, turned on to source you have, the more vital and alive you feel. And so this sort of exhaustion that a lot of people are feeling at the moment is them thinking in a way which is pinching off that connection to source, which is probably feeling upset about the current life, you know, what's going on in the world. And as we focus on what goes wrong, and because so much is coming out into the light, and this is what's happening as a part of the shift. Like, we've lived in a dimension where the lowest, or, you know, where fear has been explored in every way it can be. And if you think about it, 100 or 200 or 300 years ago, people were cutting off people's head left, right, and center. We were in a lot darker ages. So we might look at this earth and say, oh, it's terrible, there's corruption and terrible things happening, but it's nothing like it was a few hundred years ago. So we're kind of coming out of this yuga, out of this time, into the light. So there is a lot of beauty here on earth. There's a lot of stuff we can focus on that makes us feel good if we look at the bad stuff and can't feel good. That's why the show is called Accentuate the Positive. Can you look at something you disagree with and see something positive in it? That's the challenge we're up for. And the thing that Laurie was saying was so difficult, to look at people, you know, hurting children or killing animals, but we have to remember that from our spiritual perspective, we've elected to come into these earth experiences to experience contrast, to know what it feels like to understand fear, and to have the experience of separateness. And when we exit the matrix, we're back to unconditional love. So there's no way our souls can ever be harmed. And many people elect to experience really terrible things, including all the animals. And this is something that vegans don't like. And I call myself a Megan, mostly vegan. the animals that are in hideous conditions have actually elected to experience those conditions in order to have that experience of density. But as we shift gears on planet Earth, those dense experiences, those hideous experiences that we look at and we go, oh my God, that's terrible, you know, are fading away. That will be a part of another existence, another Earth, because we're moving into a experience where we get to experience more unity. And then from that perspective, what can we create as we feel more unified with the animals, more unified with the earth, more unified with each other? It's so exciting to think about what we can create once we raise our vibes collectively and globally, what sort of lives we can create from that perspective. We've explored separateness and density to the nth degree. Now it's Groundhog Day. So yeah, it's exciting times. And as all of you that are here online with me now, with David, with Sula, with all of us now, you all said that you would be a part of being the creators of the new earth. There's two ways to create. We create through destruction or we create through creation. Both energies are equally as powerful in the creative process. My guide said to me, you know, if you're going to renovate your house, you're going to create a new house, you still have to pull down the old one. So there still has to be some destruction and chaos before there is a creation of a new house. And that's what we've been going through on planet Earth. We're going through the destruction of old systems, old ways of being. Every system is under review at the moment: the money system, the educational system, the petrochemical transport system, the food system. Every system is under review, and there has to be a destruction of the old system before we can create the new system. So there's a small group online, and you are the creators. You are the creators of the new systems. There's plenty of people out there destroying the old systems. Like, there's plenty of destruction energy out there. There's more destruction energy out there than there is creation energy out there. And as I said before, one person connected to the stream of pure positive energy is more influential than a million who are not. So are many people out there screaming and yelling and saying no as they resist what is, and like want to tear down and want to destroy the status quo. And they're doing a good job. That's what they're here to do. They're part of the destruction energy. But who are you? Are you part of the destruction energy or the creation energy? So where are you going to flow your energy? Where are you going to put your focus? Can I focus on what I want while I look at what I don't want? Can I focus on how that feels? Can I be a part of creating the new? And so starting things, starting businesses, starting new ways, inventing things, and getting groups together to expand that energy field and expand that existence. That's who you guys are. You're a part of the creation of the new world, the new energies. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does there always need to be a destruction or chaos of an old system before you can create a new system?
In this dimension, yes. Yeah. In this dimension, yes. That's a part of how it works. In higher dimensions, no.
So I suppose if someone was to do something that on paper looked like it was purely creative, like create a book or a piece of art, what are they actually destroying?
Ooh, that's a good question, Sula. That's a good question. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Okay. So, well, nothing, because they're actually creating from a different dimension.
Okay. All right. And one other question I had is those three things that you said: ask, orchestrate, and allow. They were the 3 steps to do what exactly? Was it the 3 steps to manifestation?
That's the 3 steps to the creative process, any creative process. Ask, orchestrate, allow. The orchestration is the work of law of attraction, or the angels, if you like, or the spirit guides. The allowing process, the asking process, is a natural process. It happens all the time. There are plenty of teachers that are teaching law of attraction type principles that will get you to do like vision boards and stuff like that. You know, they get you to think about what you want and put it on a vision. But it kind of happens. It happens naturally. I mean, you can do that purposely. There's nothing wrong with that. But what the asking process happens naturally. When you feel down, you naturally ask to feel better. And so there is this vision that's there that you, as soon as you have a thought, that thought, actually Laurie said this last week as well, that thought already exists. That reality already exists. When you have a thought or an imagination, what you're doing is tapping in to a creation that already exists. So I think she said that the new earth that we're all trying to create actually already exists. It's true, it does, because everything exists in time and space simultaneously. So the future already exists. What we're doing is we're aligning our vibration with that specific future. Is this making sense, or is this getting a little complicated? Yeah. So if we get outside of linear thinking, that I'm going to create something and then I'm going to manifest it and make it happen, that's kind of linear thinking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to align my energy with a future that already exists, although that future might seem like an inspiration or an imagining that I have just become aware of. So it's like I thought it up, but in a way we're being thought rather than us thinking it up. So in a way, that teacher that you were talking about before, saying that, what did she say? Something about it's only the higher self that's powerful. The ego self is not. I don't know. But imagining is you tapping into something that is already out there as a probable reality. And then manifesting it in this reality is flowing your energy or aligning your energy enough so that you bring it into this reality, whether that is a piece of art or a career or a life or a building or anything that we're creating. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Karen, Louise here. I just wondered about light workers who want to vibrate higher and have worked on their bodies, worked on their energy fields. And say, for example, a friend of mine who's done that for years, her daughter's fallen pregnant, had a baby, and has said to her mother, if you don't get a vaccination, you're not going to see your grandchild. Yeah. So this light worker, this beautiful woman, has been forced into this emotional predicament where if you don't do this, you're not going to get that, because as we know what's happening with in the medical world, they're putting the fear into mothers, young mothers. And I think we all in this group are very experienced, but I'm looking at a lot of young mothers that is just torn between, what do I do? It's based on money. It's based on all these things. And if they want to send their kids to little school, preschool, whatever, they've all got to be vaccinated. They're forced into a system. So I'm just looking at my daughters. We have 4 grandchildren. I'm looking at my 2 daughters. We have a family that lives in Berlin, but we also have the 2 girls here, and their children are not vaccinated. But they think very consciously. They're very open, very aware. They use all the oils and keep their bodies clean and that. And they know that what are they going to do when they're forced into these systems, because it's already happening. And how do they keep, they want to keep their children's vibration high. They want to keep their own vibrations high, but they're forced into a system. So my question is, how do they navigate? How do we as light workers navigate through this area when you're forced? Because if you don't do it, you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, again, focusing on a reality that you want to create. So my daughter's 29 now, and I did not vaccinate her 29 years ago. And I was at a dinner party at some friend's place, and I said that, and they asked me to leave the house because they thought I was so irresponsible. I was thrown out of people's houses because they just thought that not vaccinating my child was endangering her, and then she was going to endanger everyone else, which doesn't make sense at all, because vaccination is supposed to be, anyway, doesn't make sense at all. But times have changed in 29 years, and more people are on the anti-vax, more people are waking up. And what your friend can do, as she's been told that she can't see her grandmother, the guides are just saying that's never going to happen. The guides are just saying that's not going to happen for her, So they're saying that she's going to back down. She might not back down from the vaccination thing for a while, but she'll back down from the stance of, I'm not going to let you see your grandchild. That's her fear talking. And that's what the energy on the planet, I don't want to call them the cabal or the powers that be that people, but there is an energy on this planet that as the light expands, so does the fear. And so people are really scared, you know, and what your friend can do is sticking to her guns. If she believes in not vaccinating, then sticking to it, and then just seeing her daughter. Yeah,
she did get the vaccination because she went to meet her grandson.
Oh, she got the vaccination. Yes. Right.
So she got the vaccination because, and I know this with so many of our friends, they've said to us what we've done. Our kids have obviously never said that to us, but so many of our friends have come to us and they've said, well, what have you done? We said, well, we haven't done anything, but they've been forced down this, otherwise they can't see their family. So it's a division. So it was either do that or be divided from your family. It's just, how does the light work, hold that vibration and frequency that you're speaking of?
Louise, can I answer something, or it's just my thought process?
Yeah.
Because a couple of things, happened to me that is quite interesting, because you're never forced, because you make your decisions. So your decision, like Viktor Frankl, when he was in, the Holocaust, and they made a decision to change it around, so the mindset, so that he could survive. Like, I suppose, Nelson Mandela and his 27 years in jail and coming out. So you're never actually forced, you make a decision. And this has gone through, and I even said to my father the other night, because I speak to him every night, and I was saying, Daddy, I'm not sure what's happening, but, it may be a while before I, can get on a plane to the UK because of certain, whatevers, but I'll make, a decision on that. And it's quite interesting that I've had a couple of things. One is that I go to a lifestyle clinic where people are encouraged to wear masks, and these people are in their 80s and 90s that have got ailments, And when I went in there, I just said that my choice is not to wear a mask. And the woman that is the supervisor of the physiologist said, that's fine. And I said, but what I will do is I'll bring along a mask that I like that's got a valve in it, because it won't reduce my oxygen intake. And if anyone is frightened by me not wearing a mask, I will respect the fact that they're older. And the interesting thing is, I've been going for weeks, to do the exercise, and not one person I've had engaged in conversation. But it's really weird. It's how you show up. And so I'm not, in a way, yes, she may have felt that she was forced, but she actually ultimately made that decision that she wanted to see her grandchild. And I think if you change that mindset around, then maybe even having the vaccination, and obviously being a grandmother, she'll be a bit older. So it wouldn't necessarily, like, to me, I'm thinking, well, I'm older. So, I've had very little, because in my day and age, and we only had 3 vaccines by the time we were 6, I think. And one of them, I had early because we went to Indonesia. But ultimately, now I think they have 72 vaccines before they're whatever, in America anyhow. I think that if we, as a collective, keep lifting this vibration, it actually will work its way out, if that makes sense. Not attaching that negative energy, which is exactly what you said, Karen. I'm just reinforcing that and trying to give some examples of what's happening. I once got finance on a $150,000 car when I didn't have a job, because I thought Mercedes aren't going to ask me for my tax return. They're not going to ask me for this, and they didn't. I looked at that. I wanted the car. I didn't worry about them asking about finance. I actually once got a mortgage through the bank when I didn't have a job, and that was for $600,000. That was years ago. So yeah, I actually think, it's funny. It's like changing that energetic exchange. Like I used to always fight with my daughter, and I used to visualize her getting in the car as a teenager and as a bit older, and she'd be getting out, and I could see it happening. But I'd already experience the energetic exchange. So what would happen? She'd get in the car, we'd fight, and she'd jump out 5 minutes down the road. So yeah, I don't know whether that helps in any way, Louise. It's just another way of looking at it.
Yeah, look, I understand what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, family is family, and you know, it's a very difficult thing. And she, being a light worker and understanding about spirit and vibration and frequency, it was a very, you know, well, it was a tough decision, because it was, you know, but this is what's happening. So yeah, anyway.
Okay. So what we can do is, as well as seeing the person, because obviously people, when they make decisions like that, are coming from a place of fear, is seeing them alleviate their fear. So I'll tell you a story. I had a friend who had an event space here in Sydney, and she was having a lot of personal problems. Anyway, the event space was going downhill. She didn't have enough money, and she was a pretty difficult person to work with. And I really agreed with what she was doing, and I loved what she was doing for the community. So I just persisted with her sort of grumpiness, and I just thought, oh, well, you know, she's just grumpy because she's having a hard time. Anyway, she got a group of us together, and she was asking for money to sort of prop up the event space. And I couldn't offer her any money, but I offered her some healings. So I said, look, what I can do is give you a couple of sessions and help you flow your energy in a way that will help you, you know, create what you want to create. Well, she took great offense to that. You know, when they say people turn their back on you, she was sitting on the couch facing me. She literally turned her back on me, and she wouldn't talk to me again for the rest of the night because I had offered her some healing. So I went home really frustrated. And I thought, how can I help this person who's in so much fear? And I just sat up in bed at night, during the night and before I went to sleep, and I just surrounded her in golden light. And I just thought, I just want her heart to soften. I want her to feel the love that she is. I want her to, you know, just soften that hard thinking, that fearful thinking that she has. And I just saw her surrounded in light. Anyway, the next night she was putting on an event that I had helped her with, and I knew I was going to see her the next night. So instead of ignoring me again and not talking to me, she actually came up to me and hugged me and spoke to me in a way that she had never spoken to me in all the time I had known her, and was so loving. And she was like a different person. It was like a different person to the day before. And that was just surrounding her in golden light. So as light workers, this is what we can do with people that are in fear, and they're believing their stressful thoughts, and they've swallowed the Kool-Aid, and they're believing the rhetoric of the mainstream media. We might not be able to convince them to think differently because they're going to be adamant about their points of view, and nor is it our right to change someone's point of view. But we can remind them of who they are, and we can do that psychically. So you can surround people in, and you can ask your guides about this. When you're, you know, go into meditation, you can ask what color they're needing to be reminded. You can surround them in, I used golden light. You can surround them in a purple light. You can surround them in pink light. If someone's really angry, you can surround them in pale blue light, you know, depending on the frequency they're needing. And you can soften their heart edge and their heart point of view. They might not change their mind. Like, so just getting back to the scenario of the grandmother who maybe doesn't want to get vaccinated, and the daughter who says you can't see your grandchild unless you are. If you surround her with love and light, then she might say, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to force you to get that. You know, she might soften her idea. She might stick to her guns and say, it's really important to vaccinate, and I'm going to vaccinate all my children. But she might soften that hard edge, because that's just fear talking. And fear is what separates us to love. And as light workers, what we're here to do is we're here to transmute fear to love. And so it's not for us to judge the fearful person or the angry person. It's us to remind them that they are love, and we can do that psychically.
That's really, that's a great reminder, Karen, particularly for, you know, for my children, because just before this call, I was talking to my son who, like, they're just so indoctrinated in the school system. And he was telling me they had a science exam today, and a large chunk of it was on COVID. Mm-hmm. And they had to answer questions like, is COVID a contagious disease? So they're getting all these messages, and the answer, of course, to the school system was, yes, it is. So therefore it's something we've got to fear. And I said, no, viruses don't work that way. Basic virology, you can't contract a virus. And he's like, well, that's not what they're teaching us at school. And then we had this big altercation in the car. And I realized I can't change his mind because I'm one person against this institution. So the only way I can cope with this is what you just said, to just shower him with love, because I honestly can't find another way.
You can also see them tapping into their brilliance, tapping into their knowing, their higher self. And so you can visualize as you visualize them, because, you know, we've come to explore separateness. Remember, so the ego is the part of the higher self that we've created, like the higher self created the ego. It's its baby, it's its creation. And we're here to experience ego, which is the experience of separateness, that separateness to our brilliance or to our love or to our light. That's what we came to experience. But you can visualize them feeling more connected or being more connected to their higher perspective, broader perspective, their soul's perspective, less fearful, more brilliant, more loving. And what we do as humans is we tend to look at what's going wrong and we keep saying, oh, that shouldn't be, I don't like that, I don't want that, I don't want this, this is not right, this is not right. And then as humans, we go out and we talk about it, especially women get together and they talk about everything that's going wrong. I did that for like, how long was I married to my first husband? I think I did that for like 6 years. I was studying law of attraction and all I did was complain about my husband. I was not living it. I was studying it. I was not living it. And when you start focusing on what you want, instead of focusing on what you don't want, it starts to change. You just start changing timelines because, you know, we are multidimensional beings. There are multiple timelines that we live into. There's a timeline where your son, you know, stays like that. There's a timeline where your son changes. There's you know, we've got all these probable realities that we can choose from. And where you place your focus and flow your energy, the more energy you flow into that reality, the more you create that reality in your experience. So energy flows with emotion. You can flow your energy. The more upset you are about something, then you're flowing energy in a way that's going to create that reality. Or you can feel, you know, happy or peaceful or excited about something. The stronger the emotional feels is the indication of the more energy you're flowing at something. So that's why it's so important that when we see something that we get upset about, as we get really upset about it, we're actually, that the stronger the emotion, the more energy we're flowing into that experience and creating that time. Well, we're not even creating, aligning to that timeline that flows on from that experience rather than shifting timelines. So as we shift our point of view and flow our energy in a way that feels different, because I can imagine you felt upset about that with your son, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm going to do it with you now, Swala. How can you think about this in a way that feels better without it changing?
Just visualizing him coming one day to the realization that what necessarily is taught is not his truth.
Yep. Yep. And being grateful that he got to experience a different perspective. So as we explore different perspectives, remember, exploring contrast is what we've come to do. So as he's exploring an educational system that has one point of view, it's giving him an experience and a perspective that when he shifts his paradigm, he has that breadth of experience from which to gain knowledge from. So you see how you can actually turn the negative into the positive. You can accentuate the positive by seeing that this experience that he's having is serving him in some way. It's serving him. And can I be grateful for it? Now, if you're grateful for something that you disagree with, you've completely shifted. You've completely changed the outcome. people that have got cancer. I once saw Byron Katie speaking to a man that was, I always cry when I tell this story, who was emaciated with cancer. He had an eye patch on, his eye had been taken out. He was absolutely emaciated. So her work is 4 questions and a turnaround, like question your stressful thoughts. His stressful thought was, I wish the cancer would go away. And Byron was asking him, is that true? 4 questions and a turnaround. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? How do I react when I believe that thought? Who would I be without that thought? So she did the work on him. Is that true? You want the cancer to go away? And you're looking at a man that's completely emaciated. He goes, yes, that's true. And you would think from that perspective that you would want the cancer to go away. She says, how do you react when you think that thought? I get angry. I feel powerless. I feel weak. I feel like a victim. She said, right, who would you be without that thought? And he said, I'd be free. She said, turn it around. I don't want the cancer to go away. She said, exactly. Why don't you want the cancer to go away? He said, I've never felt more alive in my life since I had cancer. I've never loved my wife more since I've had cancer. I've looked at life with a totally different perspective. My whole perspective on life has changed. I love deeper. I enjoy the little things more. Life to me is so much more precious now. And he just started rattling off this stuff. And he got to appreciate something that he'd been fighting. And that's when we heal. When we can appreciate what is exactly as it is. That's when we shift our vibration, and that's when we change the world. Any questions? Everyone's gone silent.
Wow.
Jamie, wow.
That was awesome.
I always cry when I tell that. You can see it online, it's on YouTube, but every time I watch it, I just cry because it's the truth, right? It's like mum dies of cancer, dad beats me up. I used to run away from home and sleep in the park as a kid, came from a wealthy eastern suburbs background. Dad lost all his money. So we were struggling financially, and I'm surrounded by wealthy people. You know, horror, all that stuff. You know, I had boyfriends that beat me up because I thought love was about being beaten up because dad used to beat me up. And then one night I sat up in bed and thought about this human experience and how we've come to explore contrast and how everyone is an extension of the source. So everyone comes from unconditional love. And like actors on a stage, they've had to play their role in my human drama. So what we do when we see great actors is we give them awards. You know, we've got this thing called the Academy Awards. And I sat up in bed one night and I thought I'd do an Academy Award ceremony for all the people in my life. And I thought about the boyfriend that hurt me and the mother that died and the brother that didn't speak to me. And I gave them all Academy Awards for playing their part in my human drama. And the Best Actor award went to Dad, who was the one that used to yell and scream at me and beat me up and put me in hospital when I was a kid. And in that moment, I just loved all of them for their part in my play. And I just felt so grateful and so loving towards all of them because I designed all of it before I came. I said, in order to know love, I have to forget what love is and then remember. And when you give me experiences that make me feel separate to love and lost and fearful, and I return to love, then I'm going to know love in a way that I've never known it before. And so can we be grateful for everything that we see that's going wrong? Because it's giving us an experience that ultimately our soul has elected to experience. That's how we accentuate the positive.
Amazing.
Thank you, darling Jamie.
Thank you,
It's
Karen.
the truth
Beautiful.
too.
So beautiful.
Thank you, James. Good to see you, James. We haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. I had a prior commitment with your last thing, and sorry I missed it, but I had another class I had to attend. So, yeah, great to see everybody.
So how are we doing? David 1, darling David 1.
We're doing great. Carol's just come in from LA. Welcome, Carol, darling. Does anybody else have any more questions for the wonderful Karen?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, like, I'm so thankful for tonight. It's just so good. You're amazing.
Oh, darling, you're amazing.
We're all amazing.
We're all amazing. You know, I had a download from the mob. I call the mob the other day that said, "Don't put anyone up on a pedestal, because what you see is you, basically, is you. When you revere something, that's your emotional guidance system saying, this is you, this is you, this is who you are, this is what you've come to do." And you know, who I revere and who somebody else reveres is different, right? So who's talking? Like, why do I think someone's amazing and somebody else think, they're pretty boring to me, right? So that's your soul's calling, talking. That's
I think that's what everything you were saying is on point for everything that I needed to hear personally. The literacy stuff, everything is just like so exciting. I'm so excited.
Oh, so cute. So cute.
Yeah, it's been absolutely perfect. It's funny because every question, it's sort of been everything that's been answered or said is as if you were doing a script for each and every one of us, if that makes sense. Yeah. Then you realize it's the collective energy, and that's how it's been beautiful. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, you're welcome, darling one. You're welcome, Alex. So has anyone got any questions about creating any sort of something that you're struggling with now, creating something that you want to create that you're struggling with, or looking at something in a way that feels better? Louise, I hope that answered your question about...
Thank you. Yeah, it did.
Thank
you.
Hey, Kara, just a quick question. I missed the thing you had with our friend overseas last time, and I didn't get to hear all that. But what has been your experience? Do you experience these periods that we say we're going through where there's shifts, and we might have lots of time that we're extremely tired because there's new energies coming in and all these shifts? And I don't have those very often, but recently I've been in one of those times that I have to sleep a lot and all of these things. I think there is a vibration shifting, and I have a light worker daughter that always gives me a hard time. She says, "James, you never stop. You have to, if your body wants to rest, you know." So I sometimes get hell for that. And that's something I have a hard time doing. And I don't know if anybody else, what people have been experiencing, because there is sort of a lot of almost cosmic exhaustion because the year's been so intense. But I know for myself, astrologically, things are now back where they were in March, but the planets are moving forward. So we're sort of being pulled back and forward at the same time. And it's some people are experiencing it in a fairly strong way, you know, with lots of fatigue, things like that. Did they talk about that last week? I don't know.
I think we did talk about that last week. Did we talk about that last week?
I think Laurie.
I can't tell you how many people have said that to me this week about being exhausted. It seems like every single person being exhausted and depression too, especially with the light weavers. So what the guides have said to me specifically about light workers is that when we elect to be a part of transmuting fear to love, being a part of cleaning up the density as we move into a new experience on planet Earth, many of us took on a lot of karma. We put a lot on our plate, right? We came into families that had a lot of density, historical density, because we were the ones that were going to shift it. Because there are people that come into Earth and experience trauma and drama, but they're not going to go and have healings. They're not going to shift it. So the light workers are the ones that are all going to go off and have healings and study astrology and learn about channeling, and, you know, like they're the one, and they're the ones that are going to look at what they're carrying. And so what I'm seeing with the light workers and the exhaustion is ancestral density arising. Oh, fascinating. Okay. So we kind of have done a lot of our personal growth work, right? And then something arises and you think, but I've dealt with that. Like, surely there's not more stuff. So especially when we raise our frequency, which means we flow our energy at a faster rate, anything that's not in alignment or in accordance with that frequency is going to become available for us to look at, because we have to actually see something and to transmute it. We can't bury it and then just make it go away. It has to sort of arise, which is what's happening on the planet. So as the light hits the planet and exposes, like the guides have always said to me, when you have a dirty house and you turn up the light, you get to see the dirt. So if you think of planet Earth like a dirty house and the light's being turned up, we get to see all the covert disruption, corruption, and all the lies and all the crap that's going on. And likewise with ourselves, as we turn up the light on ourselves, we get to see the distortion that we're carrying. And a lot of us are carrying collective distortion, which means that we've taken on karma and density in order to transmute it. And what we tend to do is we tend to make it personal. We tend to say, my exhaustion, my upset, me, and it's actually not personal. So if we're experiencing negative emotion or negative thoughts or negative frequency, if you detach from it being your story or your personal stuff and just see it as frequency or energy that you've been holding or carrying, and just say, hey, thanks for the ride, it's been fun, see you later. Just like a guest that's come to stay in your home for a while and then they leave, you just say, it's been fun, thanks for staying, bye. And you can let it go like that. Like, it's so easy to let go of frequency, and resisting it, like trying to fix it, trying to like get over it. It's like, I don't want this. What you resist persists. One of the most powerful laws in the universe. What you resist persists. It's like two forces that are opposing each other. Keep things still. So when you let go of resisting something, even something that you don't want, and you're grateful for it, I can't tell you how powerful and how potent gratitude is. As soon as you're grateful for something, you completely transmute the energy of it. So remembering that sometimes what you're carrying is not personal, that you're carrying it for your lineage, you're carrying it for your collective, and just saying, you know, thanks anger, thanks frustration, thanks tiredness, thanks depression. It's been nice traveling with you. See you later, and be grateful for it. You'll find that you can transmute that energy really, really easily. But what many of us tend to do is that when we are transmuting energy, we tend to do it on a different level, so we fall asleep. But it is resistance, because energy is energy, like light energy is energy, and it feels like vibrancy, it feels like life, it feels like enthusiasm, it feels like excitement. And so if you're not experiencing lightness and excitement and enthusiasm, there's interference in the flow of the energy. And so just to have a look at it and be grateful for your negative thoughts, because they're pointing at a frequency or a vibration or a belief that you're carrying. So many of the beliefs that we take on, like there is a collective belief in not enoughness, which is a collective belief that everyone buys into. But when we experience it like I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, when we experience a belief of lack, we make it personal and we say, me, it's mine. But if we can make it not personal, detach from the personal and say, I'm buying into that frequency of lack again, and just say, thanks for visiting, lack, see you later. you can transmute stuff really quickly like that. Really, really quickly. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much for that, Karen. I think it's funny, those of us who've collected techniques and ways of dealing with these things over many years, there's always another challenge. This is what I find happens. Like at some level, I feel like the frequency spiritually is actually going up. At the subtler levels, it's actually getting higher. But that means that that requires me within the body, or maybe all of us, to go deeper, as you said, into that bedrock. And even that bedrock in the deep self has to change vibration too, doesn't it? Like the whole body itself is changing vibration, is what it feels like to me. Like it's not just the spirit or the soul or the higher self and the expansion. This whole vehicle is being frequency adjusted too, isn't
Absolutely. And it's spitting out what it's holding that's not in alignment with the new density, and it's arising as exhaustion or negativity or density. It's kind of spitting out things that, as you spin something, anything that doesn't vibrate with it, it's just kind of getting thrown out. And so as it throws out, it, you know, it arises, it's in your face. And but if you can remember just to not make it personal and just say, oh, I've been holding that in my energy body.
Somebody, for everybody.
For everybody, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many light workers I've spoken to over the years that have had the most horrendous experiences with their family. There was a woman I had on the show not a few weeks ago who was a part of a cult. Anyway, they tortured her to try and bring out her multiple personalities, and she developed 327 distinct multiple personalities as she was tortured as a baby. They started torturing her as a baby. They were kind of doomsday cultists. I don't know. They were some part of some cult, and they had this baby, and they were experimenting on this baby to try and bring out these personalities. Anyway, she found a healer, and she spent years, you know, healing and bringing her personality, like bringing herself back to wholeness. But it's amazing what some of us elect to experience. It's a brave soul, really. And but yeah, I think that as she has sort of healed herself, she's done a lot of collective healing. The sort of the denser the story, the more the collective healing, because there are going to be, look at that cat. Hello, pussy. Hello, pussy. Black cat, white cat. Because there are going to be people that just aren't going to do the healing. So it's up to us to do the transmutation. We're transforming fear to love. That's what we're up to. That's what we're doing.
Thank you.
9-9. Shall we call it quits?
Yes, I think so. Has anybody got anything else to say?
Can I just ask what the cats' names are?
Called Shani, which means snow in Cypriot.
So beautiful.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
I want to just thank you so much, Karen.
Oh,
Are you there?
Welcome, Carol? Yeah, it's lovely to see you, darling one. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying up late.
Well, you know, I fell asleep waiting, so I missed a little bit of your first part of the program, and I was hoping that you recorded it, because you're so you have the most wonderful descriptions, and just now explaining how we release anxiety or whatever we're going through was so beautifully articulated and clear. So it was wonderful. You really have a beautiful gift.
Oh, thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You must have the same gift, otherwise you wouldn't recognize it.
Well, I guess so.
I guess
we always
so.
say that, don't we?
I guess so. Yeah.
We reflect what we're, loving,
absolutely.
I guess.
What we see is me, the insult, the hard part of all this is when we see something that we hate in somebody and we're really judging. It's inside us. When we see something that we really love in somebody and we really revere, it's inside us. It's like 365 degrees of mirrors. Yeah. So
really,
got it.
You wouldn't have an emotional response, be it good or bad, if it wasn't inside you. So the stronger the response, like the more pissed off you are, the more you're carrying it, or the more like excited you are, the more you're carrying it. So again, that emotional guidance system is always showing us who we are and why we're here. It's in alignment with that soul plan always. So it's pretty hard to sort of go off track when it comes to fulfilling your soul plan. But, you know, plenty of people manage to do it.
I have one question about projecting. Like when people like ask you questions, relationship questions, this, that, and the other, how something that I want to learn to do is to not project. Well, not to project. Like, how do you? I suppose you just sit and listen, don't you?
You know, I had another incredible woman on the show that I really want everyone to listen to. Her name was Lois Hollis, and she talked about shame guilt. So she recognized this energy, shame guilt, as an entity unto itself, a separate entity, not personal, not an emotion. She called it shame guilt. I would also call it fear in all its guises. You know, if we come from pure positive energy, then anything we take on that's not pure positive energy is actually not who we are. It's just an energy we choose to explore or take on for a while. But she was saying that she wanted specifically to speak to me on my show because I speak to the light weavers, the people, the New World teachers. She said that it enters the body through the same pathway as the light. So somebody asked me a question, how can that be a vibrational match? How can shame, guilt, or negative energy, you know, enter the body through the same pathway as the light? You know, it's not a vibrational match. But when you think about a pathway, it's like a road. You know, anything can drive down the road, be it good or bad. It's the pathway, it's not the light itself. But she said a lot of light workers carry this shame, guilt energy. She said that shame and guilt is the same energy. She said different location. She says when you have a bacterial infection in your liver, it's called hepatitis. When it's in your head, it's called meningitis, whatever it's called. When it's
Meningitis.
Meningitis. Thank you, Carol. When it's in your kidneys, it's nephritis. She said same bacteria, different location, different name. So she said when shame is in your body, it's in your subconscious. And when it's in your conscious, it's called guilt. She said, same energy, different location. And she said that, you know, the best way to deal with it is not to buy into it. And after I had this conversation with her, I started thinking about shame, guilt, and the way it's so intrinsically woven into the fabric of our society, and how we use things like, oh, that's a shame. You know, like we use the word. It's like this sticky substance that's just woven into everything we do here on planet Earth. And she said the best way to deal with it is just to say, isn't that interesting? Rather than getting caught up in like, oh no, isn't that terrible? Oh, you know, kind of getting caught up with the drama. If you can, again, detach from the energy as being an entity, an energy unto itself, that you're not going to buy into, you're not going to take it on. So you can look at stuff instead of getting involved in the drama, just go, isn't that interesting? How interesting. So you can still engage in the conversation, but from a detached point of view. So this is what the Buddhists talk about when they talk about detachment. It's detaching from an energy that you don't want to expand, or you don't want to buy into, or you don't want to carry. Isn't that interesting? So yeah, it's easier said than done. But again, remember the easy conversation is just a conversation we're having. Yeah, that sounds like something I could do. That sounds like it's easy. I could do that. It's easy. I can do that. It's easy. Yeah, I can make that easy. Yeah. So anything that's outside of the love and light that you want to be is just an entity that is not who you are. And then you have a choice. Do I want to play with it or not? Do I want to go there or not? So this is what I do all the time. I'll hit a negative emotion. Something will shock me. Something will shock me. Something will upset me. And then I'll say to myself, how long are you going to stay there? How long are you going to play with this energy? How long are you going to take this on? You're going to stay here for a while? Your choice. You've got a choice in this. Your choice. And I'll be like, yeah. So I had a friend during COVID when it hit. There was a young man called Tom Barnett. I think somebody emailed me and said that they were a fan of Tom Barnett. Who was that? Somebody? Was that you? Yeah. So when I saw him put out his, virus piece right at the beginning of COVID, you can't catch a virus, everything he said, I knew both from my background and my intuition, my guides, I knew was spot on, but it was really, really controversial. So I shared it in a couple of groups, and in one of my groups, the girl that started the group, the lady that started the group, she rang me up, and she didn't abuse me with negative words, but she was just in so much fear and saying, you shouldn't share this stuff. This is not the sort of thing we want in the group. But I came off that call literally shaking, like just I'd taken on this energy that she had been embodying. And it was this responsibility, fear energy that she's responsible for everyone's well-being and, looking, I don't know, it was just fear personified. And so I remember getting up off the couch after this conversation with her, and I was just literally shaking. And then in that moment, I thought, how long are you going to do this for? How long are you going to take on this energy? And so I just sat back down on the couch and started thinking about her, instead of like being pissed off with her for making me sound like I was an irresponsible idiot for posting his video in the group. I just started to think about her in a way that felt better. Okay, so she's not as tapped in, because she puts herself out there as a shaman. She's not as tapped in as she thinks she is. That's okay. We're all at different levels, and just sort of started to talk myself out of being upset or pissed off or taking on her fear energy. And it took about a few minutes, and then my energy totally shifted and the shaking stopped. And, because she's somebody I love. And so when you love someone and they're upset, it's so easy to just take on that. It's almost as if you say, oh, give me all your upset, I'll carry it for you so you don't have to carry it. Like, it's so easy to take on people's energy when someone you love is upset. And then just let it go and just talk myself out of any negative feelings or negative emotional fear. Yeah, it's easy to do.
I mean, that's very typical. No. I'm saying that's a very typical response when you post something that's polarizing. This is what happened to me in March, April, May, 3 months. I guess I felt an obligation to wake people up, and I was just posting these things that I felt was the truth, just like what you posted. I think I posted that exact thing. And you're going to get a poll of responses, and if you can't handle that, it's best either you detach from it or you don't post it.
Yeah, you're going to get people disagreeing with you, and that's life, and they're allowed to have their point of view, and they're allowed to play with density as long as they want to play with density, and that's their right. Everyone's just allowed to be where they are and allowed to feel the way they feel. And as I say, we're not responsible for changing what people believe. We're responsible for our own vibration. And as we strengthen our resolve in our own vibration, we have an amazing power of influence just being. We don't even have to post or say anything.
It's right to post. Like, if you actually tap in and go, no, this feels right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can post whatever you like, post away, and you can get backlash. And you've just got to remember that those people are just not where you're at, and they're allowed to be there, and that's okay, and that you can have a difference of opinion. Look, the most backlash I've ever had, I've been doing the shows now for 11 years, and the most abuse I've had online is from born again Christians that want to save my soul and tell me that I'm a false prophet and that the devil has, got me and I'm going to go to hell. And I mean, they just get so abusive. I actually saved all the spam messages on YouTube because I wanted to discuss them one day, because some of them are just hilarious. Some of them just post reams and reams of stuff out of the Bible, and But YouTube has brought in a new thing where if you put something in the spam folder, it's going to be deleted after 60 days. And I'm like, oh, my spam messages are going to go away. There's a brilliant musician that got so much backlash for being slightly overweight or something, I can't remember, that she took all her spam and she turned it into a song and she made a song about it. It was fantastic. Like, what a way to work with it, you know, work with that energy. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Who that?
Was it Lizzo? Was it Lizzo? Lizzo. Lizzo. She.
It was just, I can't remember her name. It was just fantastic. All her hate. Her hatred on her music, like, you're boring, and she just made a song about it. Hello, I'm boring, I make the worst music, you know, like everything that people had said that was bad about it, she just turned it into a song. And I just thought that was just such a brilliant way to disarm the energy, to just dissipate the energy, to just turn the negativity into love, to joy. Yeah, and not to get upset about it. But yeah, post away, post what your heart's desires, like speak your truth, shout it from the rooftops, and don't worry about the backlash. People are going to not agree with you, you know. They're just
name. You could be Madame Backlash or Black Splash.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's so true. When you can be, you were talking about earlier, revered, and people can put some, you know, oh, I'm so wise, thank you, Carol, or I'm this or that. And then if you put something out that they don't agree with, the same person will turn around and say, you're an idiot. You have no brain. How can you say that? And
yeah, so, exactly. And when you remember,
same people. And then the other part of it is that I'll try to, what I always say is, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do, because they don't have a clue how they're acting. And it is from fear, from, you know, something horrible going on inside them. And if they don't stop after a while, I just go delete. That's a great power that we have.
Yeah.
We don't have to surround ourselves with people that are naysayers or are constantly criticizing. You know, that's the best part of being exactly with what you said. You can withdraw too and just not participate.
That was a big lesson I learned a few years back. You don't have to engage.
Right. You don't have to.
Don't have to engage. Don't feel the pull to always engage.
But when you remember when somebody has a strong emotion, it's what they're seeing themselves. So, you know, people will love you and people will hate you, and none of it has anything to do with you. It doesn't.
So true.
It's
so
only about themselves. It's like they only see themselves. And so if you remember that people can say what they like, and it's really not about you. You have to love you. You have to feel in alignment with who you are and why you're here. And that's the best thing you can do to feel good. It's, you know, it's not about people loving you or hating you, because they don't see you, they only see themselves. Right. So your joy is never about how people respond to what you say or think or do. You know, as an actress, I can imagine, you know, any sort of actor is going to get that criticism from people, you know, being an actor. In fact, there's a fabulous YouTube video of Rudyard Kipling's poem read by, what's that English actor? Michael Caine.
But he did If.
Yes. And it's speaking about that. And he's saying, you know, as an actor, this line, you know, which is speaking about this exact same thing I'm talking about, is just so pertinent. It never has anything to do with you. People are only seeing their own subconscious thoughts screaming at them. The part of them that wants to speak out and be different and is too afraid. The part of them that just wants to fit in and be loved and be accepted. And yeah, you only see your own subconscious thoughts speaking. It never has anything to do with you. So that's great to remember, Sula, when you put something out and people love you or hate you. It's not about you. You just have to feel in alignment with what you're doing and love what you're doing. And that's in itself, it's its own reward. It's not about what people are saying. Yeah, sorry, David.
I got the most from Laurie when she said, when I asked that question, and Laurie Ladd said, yes, that our job is to show up and be ourselves.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the highest thing we can do is just be completely ourselves. And
Absolutely.
then the whole of creation.
Yeah, because when you are completely yourself, you just fall in love with yourself. You just love yourself because you're just not pretending. You're not putting on a show to be accepted, and you're just so relaxed. You're just relaxed. You're just enjoying your life. You're not trying to be someone you're not. So yeah, that's our job, just to show up and be yourself. Yeah, absolutely. What else can you do? What else can you do? You're looking particularly glamorous there too, Carol, I have to say tonight. You're looking gorgeous, darling one.
Thank you so much. I had to move around to get my Wi-Fi to keep this show going. And
I don't know how you do it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm telling you, I just woke up. That's why my hair, I'll tell you something about my hair. I got to tell you, I've been swimming. And when I go to sleep without swimming, without, doing anything to my hair, it becomes like a poodle. There's so much hair. I don't know what's going on with me. David, you know me. Sometimes, nothing's going on. My hair is growing like a weed, and I think it's the energy.
Fabulous.
Whatever the angels are wanting, they're definitely doing it through my hair. They're not wings, unfortunately.
I noticed that too, Carol. I noticed my hair growing really fast too.
Isn't that strange?
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you something. There's a vibration, and when you touch on that certain vibration, you could almost feel your hair growing. It's the funniest thing. I know it sounds crazy, but thank you for complimenting me, because I don't feel very glamorous right now. So thank you.
Oh, darling, you look gorgeous. All right, shall we wrap it up? David?
And I thank you very, very much, Karen. That was really, really fantastic. And you've helped facilitate.
It was great. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks, James.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks for the group
Thank
healing
you.
class. Great, very nice. Group healing, beautiful.
Group healing. It was
darling.
lovely. Thanks for inviting me on. And if people want to check out the shows, I've got like hundreds of them. Or my website, obviously. I do private sessions, talk to the mob. People are often asking me who the mob is. And
who's your mob? Who are your people?
People have called them the Federation of Light, the Galactic Federation of Light, the Ascended Masters. They've called them many things, but it's a stream of consciousness. It's a collective consciousness which has inspired all the light workers and light weavers. It's some people go into dimensions, 9th dimension, 6th dimension, 13 dimensions. They think that's hilarious when people say that. They love the way us humans like to categorize and label, and they.
Yeah, can I say something about that? Because it's something really on my mind, and I wanted to talk about that. People are talking about going into the 4th, the 5th, the 6th dimension, and all those things. What I've experienced is when you go out from this dimension, there's no difference. Everything is the same, because we see everything is all revealed on the same. I don't even think of a dimension, because it's like all knowing once you're there. And so I don't understand what people are talking about when they talk about the different dimensions. Are they talking about it of only being here on the planet? Because when we go out,
it's really about experience. It's just the frequency you're vibing at and the experience it's giving you. So so a 3rd dimension, it's just speed of frequency. So when the higher realms look at us in our 3rd dimension, we actually look like we're in slow motion. And many people who have had like things like accidents or near-death experiences have, or maybe you've experienced it where you've had an experience where everything's slowed down and it's like everything's moving in slow motion. I remember I had a client once I was healing that was hit on an intersection by an SUV, and she said that as she was thrown up into the air, it was like Everything was in slow motion, and then she came down on the pavement. It was all in slow motion. So that's you viewing this dimension from your broader perspective, from your higher perspective. And so you're seeing it in more, it's like more like real time. We're experiencing it as normal time, but when you view it from a higher perspective, it looks like slower time. So dimension is just frequency and speed of vibration. It's just speed of vibration, and higher dimensional beings just they flow their energy at a higher rate. And so, as I said before, I don't know if you're online then, Carol, we can't perceive them through our physical perceptual devices like eyes and ears and touch and smell, because they have limits on what bandwidth and frequency it can perceive. But we can perceive through our third eye or our psychic senses, because there's no cap, there's no limit on the bandwidth that we can perceive, unless we give it one through our thinking, unless we limit ourselves. I can or I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. Or we tune into a dominant vibration of thought, where you have a default setting where you go to that dimension. So some psychics will only speak to the personality of a dead person, because that's the bandwidth of frequency they're used to, rather than the higher self. Is this making sense? It's all just frequency and energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all one big energy field and then different components, but it's one thing. So I think that as we we use our separateness thinking, we talk about dimensions. It's like it's a place and a separate thing, but it's not separate at all. It's just speed and frequency. Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway,
Thank
I'm
you.
rabbiting on. I could rabbit on all night, but we'll leave it there. Bye. Thanks. Bye. Mwah. Big love.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Good morning,
And
good
everybody.
day.
Now I'm going to be up all night wanting to talk to you.
Bye-bye.
I know.
You guys get to go to sleep now, and I'm like, what am I going to do?